Welcome, everyone. Just waiting for our monitor to come up. Okay, thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. Today is Tuesday, August 11th, 2015. It's our regular City Council meeting. We're located here at the Veterans Memorial Hall, 209 Surf Street here in Morro Bay. Welcome. For the record, we do have a quorum, and we do have a quorum. All council members are present. Thank you. And at this time, we'll call the meeting to order. And to start off, if you'll all please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to welcome Rick Sauerwein is sitting in for our Public Works Director, Rob Leivik. So Rick, would you mind leading us in the pledge? Thank you. Thanks, Rick. Welcome. And for a closed session report, look to our city attorney at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. We had 4 items on the agenda. They were all discussed, but there was no reportable action.
Thank you very much. And at this time, we can go into mayor and council members' reports. And I'll look to my right. John, do you have any announcements you want to start us off?
Whoa, that's powerful. Either I'm powerful or the video is powerful. A number of you may have read the newspaper last week. There is an uptick in the number of bicyclists in the county that are entering our emergency rooms. It's the highest number that they've had in over 20 years. And so the caution is, because we are a bicycle community, is to pay attention to the safety rules and regulations and be aware, be defensive. That's really the issue. A majority of the issues had to do with head injuries because individuals were not wearing helmets. And so I implore you, older folks, younger folks, be sure that you do wear your helmets from a safety standpoint. Flu season is upon us once again, and so I encourage you, so that you're not off work for a number of days, to get your flu shot. Flu shots should begin in the community about the 3rd week of August. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Rob. Nothing? Matt?
Yes, I'd like to announce that this past Saturday we closed the season for Project Surf Camp, a camp for children with special needs and their families. And it was so significant because we had an incredible outlay of support from our fire department, our police department, our city. And it was a great summer. We had over 300 campers and about 600 volunteers come to Morro Bay. Our campers came from all over the country, and it was a really good representation from our city to do that. So there you go.
Thanks, Matt. Christine?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. And I hope that you did not miss us when we didn't have our meeting 2 weeks ago. So nice for everybody to have a little bit of a break. I have just 2 brief announcements. One is to follow Councilmember Heading's announcement about bicycle safety. There is a street cycling class that's coming up, and it's going to be in Morro Bay on Saturday, September 26th. And it is from 9:30 in the morning until 11 a.m. I believe the site may be the Chamber of Commerce, but I'm not 100% sure. So if you need more information, feel free to reach out to me and I'll find out the location for you. But also, you don't need a bicycle to attend. It's basically an information sharing workshop talking about bicycle safety and how to maneuver your bike in a world of cars in many cases. So that's the first announcement. And then the last and final announcement is school will be going back into session for our school district on Monday, August 24th. So I don't know if you heard the kids crying as I made that announcement or parents cheering. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. No announcements for me at this time, and with that, we'll conclude our council members' announcements, and we'll move on to public presentations. Tonight we have two presentations. We have a LEAP update presentation, and we also have a presentation of our Extreme Hero Awards Week proclamation. So our LEAP update will be first.
Getting the slides up on the screen. While it's happening, I want to thank the mayor and council members and members of the public for all the activity that's been happening around the LEAP program. LEAP, is, for the benefit of those who are watching, is Morro Bay's local economic action program. And I'm delighted to say that there are many steps that this community is taking to leap forward and to make its economy more robust and successful in serving the residents and the visitors, and having thriving businesses here that are able to support the economy of the community. And I think what you're going to hear tonight in this very quick summary of things that are happening is the remarkable things that can occur when volunteers from the community join with their elected officials and the city staff to give focus on things that they can accomplish together, and I want to highlight those. What I'm highlighting really are the results of many people's efforts. My role has been to facilitate those, and I just want to highlight some of the elements of what we're looking at here. So right now we're in the implementation phase, and you'll recall from the March discussion, there were 10 initiatives that were identified, and the city council endorsed the LEAP action plan at that time. And these 10 areas of activity, and incorporated support for a number of them in the budget. So there are resources and effort and energy from all different areas to come forward and make this happen. So let me just run through these very quickly. I'll highlight some of the leaders in these programs so that people can connect with them if they'd like to do that. This entire presentation is online. The city clerk was very kind to get that up today. So I'll show you the link at the end so that you can review this in more detail. The first initiative was how to expedite the processing for targeted businesses. Targeted businesses are businesses that are going to create multiple head of household jobs and that really leverage some of the distinctive strengths of this area. So here's an example, South Bay Wild, a trawling boat that's working to environmentally and appropriately fish off the coast here. So it's a unique opportunity for this community to have that kind of fishing, and it took advantage of a facility that was right on the Embarcadero that was being unused, and the city staff helped identify that and figure out a way for that business to work, and that business is now sending fish overnight around the country, bringing dollars from elsewhere into the community. Another indication of a good, positive business. Another one, their ongoing work with the tenant improvements at the Sun Bolton building. That building had really lapsed for years there, and the staff was able to figure out how to make that work. An element of herbs that had wanted to be back in this community has now found a way to get here, and look forward to when that opens up. So those are initiatives that are really happen through the LEAP team. That's the mayor, the city manager, and the planning director. They're the ones that put their heads together when a business wants to come here and has multiple head of household jobs and is going to add value to the community, to figure out with them how to help make that happen. The second initiative is how to revitalize and link the business districts. So one of the things that's really unique about Morro Bay that people may not appreciate here is that Morro Bay has the Embarcadero, which runs along the whole line of the bay, which, for example, Pismo Beach does not have. Its streets just go and dead end at their beach. This is a great advantage, but one of the things that needs to happen is to figure out how to make that more accessible to people and how to leverage that. So my understanding is the city staff has got a contract coming in to do public outreach and to look at how to widen the sidewalk and pedestrian area to make that a better and stronger asset for the community. And of course, there's the issue of how do you get up from there to the downtown with the Centennial Stairs. There's a design effort that's underway to look at how to create those links so that in fact all three areas are chained together in an effective way so that people are working across the community. And I was informed by the city manager that there's a downtown waterfront strategic plan process with public involvement that's anticipated to launch in January through March of 2016, so the community can participate in their ideas and suggestions on how to move that forward. This whole area here of how to revitalize and link the business districts has a lot of community involvement in it. Susan Stewart has been a community member leading that action team, and appreciate her initiative. There's also efforts underway through tree maintenance. You might have seen the trees getting trimmed around town. I nearly got hit by a branch before they did the tree maintenance, so I'm glad that the tree maintenance has happened. And the staff is exploring parking improvements to address the concerns of the merchants and visitors. And Morro Bay in bloom has been blossoming and doing projects all around town to make this as attractive as possible. So lots of things that are happening to help revitalize the look and feel and service of the business districts. Now, a third initiative was around reinventing events to better serve the residents, businesses, and visitors. Of course, everyone knows about the Family Fun Day that happened on July 4th, a really restructured activity happening through the city staff initiative and people in the community to make that work. And the striking thing is, they move the fireworks from when they don't work, because it's foggy in July 4th, 5 times out of 10, if not more, to Oktoberfest, when we have sunny, clear skies. So this is, again, I think the key thing here is people are looking at how to create sustainable competitive advantages for this community. So we're not just like one of everybody doing July 4th fireworks, except ours get clouded over and you can't see them, which is a negative, is rather how to take advantage of when we have the great weather and how to create a wonderful experience along that whole Embarcadero with the Harbor Festival. So lots of new creative ideas happening from the head of and the team of the Harbor Festival and from the city staff to figure out how to repurpose and recreate these events in ways that are going to be successful for everybody. Initiative number 4 is to promote the environmental assets. A number of things are happening around that. That work team with John Heading and Noah Smuggler and a lot of people from the community are working on that topic, which is, again, this city has distinctive environmental assets. How can those be leveraged to the benefit of the residents and to visitors and to help the economy? So getting that list done and figuring out how to move it forward is a key thing. And I also heard that there's work proceeding with the idea of a Morro Bay green belt, or at least to explore what that would involve and how that might go forward. So lots of things popping around town, people looking at things, people engaging the community to think about them, ask questions, offer ideas. That's all important. Another one coming up is to explore a marine science and education center with 3 partners, the city, the Central Coast Aquarium, and Cal Poly. Cal Poly already has a dock here that it uses for research purposes, so it makes a lot of sense for them to be involved. The aquarium has had success in Avila and really revitalizing that area and bringing new science and opportunities to the public, and the city has a role there as well. So a lot more is going to be happening around that topic as well. These are not done deals, these are things that are in the works, but I thought it was a useful time to bring them together. And they're initiatives that people are doing all on their own. The pickleball people are out in droves, and they're bringing a couple apparently nationally ranked pickleball players to come on August 19th and show people in the community what, world-class pickleball looks like, which should be an exciting thing to observe. So, again, and that's entirely a community-based initiative, people in the community trying to help people become aware of what the opportunities are. Initiative number 5 is how to create inviting places where people want to be, linger, and create a sense of community in the community. One illustration of that is the parklet. You're going to be just talking about that later on tonight, but I think it's important to look at that initiative in the broader context of how do we make Morro Bay a place that people want to be in, want to meet in, want to gather in. That's the kind of magic that exists in some other communities around on the Central Coast here, and Morro Bay hasn't really cracked that nut. And the parklet is an effort to explore how that could be done and what can be learned from that. So, initiative number 6 is to assess fiber optic connectivity opportunities. You may recall that when we did the community project here, we had a couple hundred people here. The one initiative that got only green dots, no yellow dots, like, hey, I'm concerned about how this would work, but everybody said, hey, go for this, was the idea of getting high-speed internet access, sort of business standard internet access, 100 megabytes or more, that people could really be successful with in helping to bring software and other businesses or remote businesses where people want to live here and want to telecommute to elsewhere. So I understand that background work and research has been done by city staff on that. They've been meeting with the internet and cable companies, and they're about to issue an RFP for those services so that you can see who can best provide that kind of capability and what it could offer to the many things that the community was asking about. Hey, how could this come to my home in addition to the businesses? So we'll be seeing what those organizations can offer to help the community be successful. So let me just zip along. The inventory of commercial properties, one of the issues is, okay, if somebody wants to come here, how the heck do they find a place to be? Because it's not too obvious. So the city staff's been working with interested groups. I thought they did a very creative thing of using Google Maps to create overlays and identify, hey, here are some spots and places, a quick, easy way for people to see what might be available. I think that's a very creative approach on the city staff, and great to see them doing that. The Chamber's been going through a review of the business incubator experience and what other ways they could improve and enhance local business building efforts. So they've been building up their website, thinking about and helping people in the community learn how to use social media and other marketing tools to move forward. Number 9 is outreach to attract businesses. Christine Johnson and others from the council here involved with the EVC and other groups around have been networking, and that's been helping to bring some of these opportunities here. And then finally, initiative number 10 is how to help support the commercial and recreational marine interests. And as you know, there's work underway. A market analysis has been completed, and a feasibility analysis is underway to see if this could actually move forward on an economic basis and be successful. So a lot happening. I encourage people, if they'd like to learn some more, go to Morro Bay's website, the LEAP page, or send me an email if you'd like to get proactive notices when things are coming up. We want people to be involved. There's time to be involved. This is not all over, not all done and baked. This is a chance for the community to still get involved, and if you have an interest, let me know, and I'll be glad to help you get connected. Thank you very much.
Don, thank you very much. Thank you. And with that, we get on to our next presentation. It's a proclamation of Extreme Hero Awards Week. And I guess at this time I would ask to pull item A3 from our consent, which is the proclamation for of the City Council of the City of Morro Bay declaring Tuesday, August 11th through Friday, August 14th as Extreme Hero Awards Week. I would ask that we pull that, approve that off the consent, and then go ahead and do our presentation. So I take a motion to approve, pull item A3 and approve item A3 off our consent. We have a motion by Matt, a second by Mr. Heading. And any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And we, I have a bio for Staff Sergeant John Dedamore. I hope I... That is correct, sir. Thank you, sir. And if you would just so allow me, I'll go ahead and read this bio, and then maybe we can come up and meet up at the podium, and I'll read the proclamation. So this is a Wounded Warrior Battalion West, Staff Sergeant John Dedamore. Hailing from Converse, Indiana, Staff Sergeant Dedamore enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in July 2002. After successfully completing his basic training at MCRD San Diego, so some acronyms here, bear with me. He attended the Marine Corps' combat training and completed combat engineering basic school at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, where he was promoted to private first class. Upon graduation, he was assigned to 1st Combat Engineering Battalion, Camp Pendleton, California. From March 2003 to May of 2006, he was deployed 3 times to Iraq. During this period, he was promoted twice, once to Lance Corporal, and then to Corporal. Upon return from Iraq, Corporal Dedamore was reassigned to Marine Wing Support Squadron in Camp Pendleton, and in 2007 he deployed a 4th time to Iraq, attached to 1st Combat Engineering Battalion. Promoted to sergeant in 2008, Sergeant Dedamore was reassigned to headquarters and headquarters squadron in Miramar, California, for duty as the base self-help staff non-commissioned officer in charge until June 2011. Sergeant Dedamore then transferred to 3rd Combat Engineering Battalion, 29 Palms, California. And in September of 2011, Sergeant Dedamore deployed on his 5th combat tour to Afghanistan. While on security patrol as the lead sweeper in Muzakala district, you can probably help me with that at some point, he was shot and severely wounded with a bullet round lodged in his left lung. Sergeant Dedamore spent the next 18 months recovering from his wounds and remarkably achieving full duty status. On March of 2013, Sergeant Dedamore deployed back to Afghanistan with the 3rd Combat Engineering Battalion on a 6th combat tour. While deployed, it became visually and physically apparent that his previous wound had not completely healed. Sergeant Dedamore was medevaced back to the States and assigned to Wounded Warrior Battalion West. Recently promoted, Sergeant Dedamore has taken on a leadership role while recovering from his wound. His selection as Extreme Caregiver Awardee was based on his unsurpassed compassion and desire to prove support to his fellow service members. Staff Sergeant Dedamore's wife Lucy and their daughter Bella are currently in Hubert, North Carolina, and were unable to attend due to work and school commitments. So that is the bio on Staff Sergeant Dedamore. And at this time, if you could meet me down at the podium, I've got a proclamation for you and the Wounded Warriors. Would the rest of council like to come down? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Folks, it's a privilege to read and deliver this proclamation, and let me start out with the title. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Morro Bay, California, declaring Tuesday, August 11, 2015 through Friday, August 14, 2015 as Extreme Hero Awards Week. The City Council and the City of Morro Bay, California, whereas the Morro Group Incorporated is a local 501c nonprofit founded in 2013 after establishing the Extreme Hero Awards the prior year, and whereas the Morro Group created the Extreme Hero Awards in 2012 to honor and assist Marine families from the Wounded Warrior Battalion West headquarters at Camp Pendleton, California. And whereas 7 extreme heroes, along with their families, will be recognized and will enjoy an all-expense-paid 3-day vacation in and around Morro Bay, California. And whereas the primary focus of the Extreme Hero Awards is to provide a positive healing component for the entire Wounded Warrior family. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Morro Bay does hereby proclaim August 11, 2015 through August 14, 2015 as Extreme Hero Awards Week. It's an honor, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words? Would you like to say
Thank you again so for everything.
Sir, I'm sorry, we're videotaping this. Could you speak into that microphone, please? And you can look at us. You can.
I was about to say, I don't like having my back to people. No offense to these. On behalf of the other Marine service members and families, I think I could easily say thank you for the welcoming outreach and welcome us into your guys' community. It's nice to actually see people kind of recognize kind of what we do and understand that, yeah, it is a choice, but we do still, like you guys say, thank you. It does hit right here, because some places where we're from and all that stuff, we just get looked at as like, okay, whatever. So thank you, and I appreciate everything that you guys have been doing also. And you all have a good day. Thank you.
Would those present from the Morrow Group just please stand or wave your hand for everybody in the audience to know? Thanks, you guys. Thanks for you. Okay, but with that, thanks very much, everyone. And it's now time to move on to public comment. Typically with public comment, we start off with a business spot, and I'm looking for Jan out there, who's our wonderful person who coordinates that, but it doesn't look like we have someone for today, so I'll just move on to our regular assignment here for public comment. And with that, public comment will be open. If that's for everything that's, pardon me, sir? Oh, please do, I'm sorry. Pastor Jack Arnold? Are you Pastor Jack Arnold?
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. You want Pastor Jack? Is that who you're looking for?
Okay, I thought that's what you were
No,
saying. You were okay.
I'm
So
a little
for
behind him. I think we're after public comment.
okay, so public comment is open. You have 3 minutes. Please speak to any
Okay,
item not on the agenda.
Thank you. I'll be real quick, and thank you for letting me come aboard. And I came here, and back in January, we tried to get a stop sign on Morro Bay and Pacific, Main and Pacific, and we haven't heard anything at this point. And
Sir, for the record, could you just state your name?
my name is Cruz Reyes,
Okay, thank you.
R-E-Y-E-S, and we set up a petition with 161 signatures in and around the square mile around Main and Pacific. I think there have been several people that have called your office, and they stopped by my house. Apparently no calls have been returned. And so I wanted to find out what the status is on this.
We'll have a response following public comment. It would be appropriate then.
Okay.
I will say that I did have contact with someone about that today. So
Okay.
following public comment, we'll
Okay,
respond.
and then we need a number. If you decide to decline to put a stop sign on Main and Pacific, we're going to need a phone number for these people to call you and find out
Okay.
why you're not answering the calls. And also, now we're talking about bicycles real quick, and I ran into a group from Oregon down at the park, and they asked me a really important question. They said they felt that you didn't have any traffic control in this town, and I thought, and I couldn't answer them directly, but I said we have a fine police force, but I don't see them giving any tickets. And they told me that they were almost pushed off the road, and there's no bicycle lane going down to the park. And the rangers have their hands full. And I thought I'd mention that to you. And I think with this stop sign, if we had traffic control, we wouldn't need a stop sign. And so I don't see anybody getting any tickets. A lot of people drive really fast. The out-of-town folks drive really, really great. From Bakersfield and Fresno, I think it's the locals that really drive around. And if you think somebody said 25 miles an hour from Morro Bay Boulevard to Pacific, that's not true. You might as well think more than 50 or 60 miles an hour. I run that every single day, and I'm telling you that you're taking your life in your hands. So in any event, I'll wait for your, and I hope city manager, they'd like to call you too. So there you go. And I really, really want some responses from you guys. I think right now you guys are named as mud right now because there's nothing has been done on this. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Walter Heath, Morro Bay resident and president of Morro Bay and Bloom. I'm here tonight to thank City Council and City staff for the support that was given during the recent visit of the judges from America and Bloom. Katie Moss Warner had a 24-year career with Walt Disney World, and Karen Rindahl, who accompanied her and has seen dozens of cities, were very complimentary of Morro Bay and what they saw. They loved a lot of the things that they saw, in particular the heritage trees, the fact that we have those mapped out and we're caring for those. The fact that our flowering eucalyptus we work around the root systems of the eucalyptus and allow them room, and the sidewalks around the root systems are expandable to a certain extent and flat, and we don't see a lot of sidewalk buckling. So the management of that was something that they complimented us on. They also liked the parklet very much. They really complimented us on the forward thinking to want to provide gathering places for people, and they say successful cities have a lot of gathering places, and so they were complimentary of that. And in general, they were quite surprised at the amount of color that we're deriving from planting succulents. It's not something that they see a lot of where they're from on the East Coast, and so they were surprised to see that succulent plantings can work. And we should all remember that all cacti are succulents, but not all succulents are cacti. So you don't really have to have cactus all over the place. There's a great variety with succulents, and it really is quite a beautiful plant and very suited to our climate and water conditions right now. So again, thanks to all. I'll find out probably the first week of October how we did on the evaluation. It's a 1,000-point scale. And we'll see what our Bloom rating is and if we win any awards, which I'm sure we will. So thanks again.
Thank you for your work, Walter. Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Public comment is open for items not on the agenda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Chris Christensen, one of the original founding members with my inspiration, hero, and partner, Jeffrey Bacon, of the Extreme Hero Awards. We really want to tell you how much we appreciate you recognizing our efforts to honor these men and women that have given so much by choice. We want to make sure that the community understands that our particular mission is to focus on the family, and the family that sacrifices just as much as the wounded warrior themselves has sacrificed as they've sent their young men and women off to war. Some of them come back very different people, and they have a lot of challenges to deal with the rest of their lives. And we choose to recognize that, and we invite them and their whole families up here on our ticket to honor them and to show them a little bit of a beautiful Morro Bay. I just want to remind you that one of my personal intents with this creation of the Wounded Warriors event that eventually created the Moral Group, and we have a great group of board now that is helping us put together that event. But at the time that I was approached by Jeffrey with this concept of honoring our Wounded Warriors, I was president of the chamber. And I was at that time looking for a way to find ways to benefit Morro Bay and do something that would showcase Morro Bay, if you would, to the rest of the world. And we came up with this concept, and we believe that this is in the process of doing just that and showing that our community cares about our wounded warriors and our men and women that serve in this country. So once again, thank you very much for honoring us. I just wanted to read to you real quickly our mission statement. We, as Extreme Heroes Awards event, are committed to ensuring a wounded warrior's mind, body, spirit, care, and family are not just healed, but they're strengthened and improved. And this is just one of our ways to help them do that. So thank you again.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I'm Sandy Tandler from Morro Bay. I have a letter from Jordan Cunningham, President of the Central Coast Taxpayers Association. It's regarding Defend Proposition 13 Coalition, oppose Senate Constitutional Amendment 5. Dear Mayor Irons, on behalf of the Central Coast Taxpayers Association, I am taking this opportunity to inform the Morro Bay City Council that the organization has endorsed and joined the statewide Defend Prop 13 Coalition with the purpose of defeating SCA 5, the split roll tax proposal. Please note CCTA will vigorously fight any effort to gut Proposition 13, such as SCA 5. Proposition 13 protects taxpayers, jobs, and our economy. If passed, SCA 5 will have a devastating impact to the small businesses in the city of Morro Bay. CCTA is requesting the member of the Morro Bay City Council pass a resolution opposing SCA 5 and send copies to Senator Bill Monning and Assemblyman Cacho Asasian, as well as the League of Cities. And we don't have it in here, but we'd like it to go to Governor Brown as well. Respectfully, Jordan Cunningham, President. I would like to ask you to put this resolution on your agenda for the 25th of August. We have a very short time to get this all done. So the 17th of September, maybe. But if the boys and girls in Sacramento get busy and rush things through, it might be earlier that they'll try to put this on a ballot. I also want to say that the Pismo Beach City Council unanimously voted to send an opposition letter to our representatives urging you to strongly oppose SCA 5, as well as SLOCOG last Wednesday. So there will be more cities doing this. So I really urge you to put this on the agenda and vote, and have a letter sent from the city of Morro Bay. I think that'll be very meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening, Susan Stewart, resident and business owner in town. I wanted to compliment the city and the community on good water preservation efforts and also planning ahead for drought situations. But I also want to encourage you to plan ahead for the potential that we have for an El Nino this winter. What I see is a creek that hasn't gone to the ocean in years and years and years, and it used to go so fast and so hard you couldn't even wade across it as you're walking down the beach. I remember about 20 years ago we had some major storm, and all that water pours down from the mountains down Morro Creek, nearly took out Silver City, so there was some loss of property and potential for a lot of damage. And what's happened with all these years of no water is there are willow trees growing up in the creeks, lots of dead trees falling in the creeks. What happened that time 20 years ago, I think that a lot of dead stuff had fallen in, was clogging up under the bridge. It's flooding over the highway there. So I think it would be a good time now to be talking to the Fish and Game, because you can't go into the creeks without talking to them first. Possibly the Army Corps. I don't know if we can get our engineers out there, geologists, somebody to take a look at it. But it's high. The creek beds are high. They're silted up, and if we do get, one of those kinds of storms like we saw a tiny bit of this summer, we could be looking at some real disasters this winter. And if we plan ahead a little bit, figure out where that water's all going to go, I think forewarned is forearmed. Forearms, I don't know. Anyhow, so just a thought for all you staff people. I don't see Rob here. You don't look like Rob, but you're probably in that department, so something for staff to think about. And just thinking also about succulents, if you want to plant succulents, we have a lot of local stores, including mine, that carry them, but also Garden Gallery on the waterfront. Miners has a lot. They're beautiful, beautiful plants. Also, geraniums are a good drought-tolerant plant. Bring a lot of color in, spread well. Throw your bath water on them. They don't mind a little soap. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Public comment is open for those who'd like to speak to any item not on the agenda.
Good evening. I'm Bill Fritsch, a longtime resident. This isn't going to go over well for some people, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'd like to see public comment be 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, can you step to the mic a little bit, please? Sure. Thank you.
I'd like to see public comment become 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. It would give people a chance to take a deep breath and deliver their message. Many people have to rush, including myself, to get everything in 3 minutes. And I know the chair has a discretion occasionally to go 1 minute. I think that's the wrong direction. I think 5 minutes would actually allow people to collaborate. You might have 6 or 7 or 8, 10 people. Allow one person to speak. They can deliver what all these people are going to say in 5 minutes and save yourself a half hour. I think it may be the best way to go. You would encourage public participation, which I think is important in this democracy. I also consider this a progressive approach. So 5 minutes, please. And the other thing, if a lot of people want to come and have their say, and I know meetings go long, and sometimes you have to do, what I encourage you to do is do another meeting, perhaps. And I would actually support a ballot measure to give everybody related that has to come to these city functions a raise. I think public comment is really vitally important as our public servants. They're also our public employees. I would suggest that as a public individual, is that we can do that. We can support more public comment, a broadened public comment, more input for your decision-making process. So expand public comment, please. I'm not the only one who thinks this, by the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Hi, good evening. Bill Martini, Morro Bay. And I know maybe it's been about a month ago that on closed door that there was negotiating between the city and the property owner and I think the Public Land Trust for Cerrito Peak. Right now I think it's listed for about $1.2 million, and I think if the city is in the process, that's how I interpreted the closed door meeting, that they were, for negotiating price and terms. The public probably should know about it if there is some purchase or something going on, especially the neighborhood. Just kind of a quick comment, if there is a purchase or something of that nature, that it should be more widespread, or the knowledge should be out there. The second thing is, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, just to add up, that the lawsuit, that the city's suit has been settled, I think, and the judgment has been finalized, so at least that's beyond, and past. The other thing I wanted to comment on is the projected cost of the wastewater treatment plant. And I'll backstep and state that when it was going to be built in its current location, replaced, it was about $35 million. Los Osos just completed a plant that totally recycles water for 15,000 people, and it was bid out at $35 million. It ran $10 million over because of the site was a poor location. It cost more money because of the site. And I think when I'm listening to the price of $75 million without recycled water, $100 million with recycled water, I can see where maybe Cayucas ran the other way because they were concerned about price and they were just going to be a customer. I just don't understand the price tag that's being quoted when prior and current wastewater treatment plants are being built for half that. And then I also heard that just the consulting fees or the management to oversee it is projected upwards to $10 million, just for someone to oversee the building and the permitting. So I think if can explain where these figures are coming out, where we actually have current plants that are the equivalent being built that totally recycle water for 35 to 40 million. It's just scaring the public, and maybe Cayucas might come back on board if they thought, the price was reasonable. Just a thought. Thanks.
Good evening, David Nelson, citizen of Morro Bay. To follow what Bill's saying, I'm really disappointed that we haven't seen some projects before us so we kind of understand where we're going. I look at the articles on the cost of the sewer plant, and it's kind of astounding to me. I mean, we paid $20,000 for somebody to tell us that there are no grants available. Well, it seems to me that part of the equation should be, well, what are we going to build before you ask for a grant? I mean, there's grants out there for cutting edge stuff that we can look at. So I'm a little bit concerned that we haven't had some public presentations of what's available and what we're thinking about doing. I'm afraid what we're seeing is what we had in the last councils, and we're going forward with an idea that you might be having, but we don't understand. I'm afraid with the staff that we've put together. It looks just like what we had before, looking at the old technology. I know the old technology is easy to do, but is it the best? I mean, I really feel the way Bill does. We should be getting the most for our money as a city. We're all here, we all use it. So, and I really feel bad that we're not getting more chances as the public to see what's going on, as opposed to, I watch the committee meetings and stuff, but that's hardly knowing what's going on. So that's one of my problems. My other problem is that those holes in that stack still really bother me. What are we doing about it? Are we on top of Dynegy and PG&E on the cleanup over there? Do we know what's going on yet? I came here 9 months ago. I'd like to know what's going on. That stack is changing colors on the west side of it. Now, it could be my imagination, but I sure would like to see some soil sampling done. And we got to know what's in those stacks. We don't really know. We have an idea what's in there, but it was condemned as a toxic nuisance. Nuisance was a small word, but. And one other thing before I go is, whatever happened to our medical marijuana referendum? Over half the people in this town voted that we should do this. Our city attorney did a lot of work on it, not you, sir, but it was one of the better things he did here. He showed us where we should be making $100,000 a year on that. You could have paved my street for $100,000. And we've been going, how many years now? 2, 3, since we passed that resolution. I don't understand. At least vote on it. Let us know what you think. I mean, if you're going to vote it down again, let the voters know, because the voters said to do it. So I don't understand why the public gets ignored. Thank you.
My name is Betty Winholt, and I have 3 topics this evening. The first one is a personal. If anyone lives in South Morro Bay, around Maine, Acacia, Shasta, Olive Street, my neighbor's cat's run away, and we're all very sad and looking for it. His name is Bevo, and he's gray and white. The other item that I'd like for you to note is I'm collecting forms on prescriptive rights on the Toro Lane project that's coming before the Planning Commission next Tuesday. And this is right off of North Highway 101 at the intersection of Yerba Buena. And when you turn immediately right on the Toro Lane, you can see this trail that's been in use since the 1960s. And we know that many residents have used that. And so if anyone has and is willing to fill out our one-page form to acknowledge that, we'd like to be able to present those to the Planning Commission next Tuesday. You can contact me at 772-5912. That's my phone number. And my third item tonight is in the minutes from the last meeting. I did speak during public comment, and I was speaking on behalf of Morro Bay Beautiful, and I think I'd like that acknowledged in the minutes. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. I think there's a couple of items to respond to. We'll start with the Pacific and Maine and the phone calls from Mr. Cruz. I did receive a call from the manager of the Morro Crest Motel. Actually, I talked to her today, and I believe we may have a response from our city manager on that situation here in a second. Just wanted to address that. And then SCA 5, Ms. Tandler, the request for council to agendize future agenda items. I guess council can't do that. For the record, I did look into that. I did sit on the SLOCOG board. SLOCOG board will be agendizing that. They didn't vote unanimously to submit the letter, but approved agendizing that letter. And so, and for the other part of that is SEA 5 has to do with commercial properties. So for me, I'll be submitting my own letter, but I won't be participating from council as a property owner for commercial property. I'm looking towards our city attorney. It would probably be somewhat of a conflict of interest to participate in a council letter opposing that, but I could submit my own letter on that on behalf, and I didn't know if you want to comment on that, Joe?
If I say no, do I have to comment?
No, yeah.
I think because of the general nature of the matter, it wouldn't be a conflict under the Political Reform
great.
Act.
All right, thanks. And then expanded public comment. Interestingly, the very first month I was in office, public comment used to be 3 minutes at the very beginning of the meeting. One of the first things that I proposed to past council was to change the way we do meetings so we have public comment for every item on the agenda. In the past, we had 3 minutes for public comment, period. That was it. The only other, so when it came to consent, when it came to a business item, at the very beginning of the meeting, you had public comment to speak on everything on the agenda. You had 3 minutes for everything. Now we have 3 minutes to speak at public comment, 3 minutes to speak on a hearing item, and new business and old business as well. So I would say from that standpoint, I think council has been fairly proactive on that. And then there's a couple other items as far as staff that may respond, but I think I'll start off with Dave, if you can respond to the Pacific and Maine.
Sure, thank you, Mayor Irons. There was a great turnout and great discussion on the stop sign question on Pacific and Maine several months ago, and the council received the 150 or so petition signatures. I'm sorry? 161. And that night the council agendized a discussion, an item in order to address that issue. The council, about 2 council meetings later, addressed that issue and in fact voted 4-1 to order a stop sign and placed at Pacific and Maine. So the council took very decisive action on that. I'm sorry, voted 3-2 to direct implementation of that stop sign. So the council heard those 161 voices, took action, and voted to direct the staff to place a stop sign. That's the good news. The bad news is soon after that, staff, in doing some additional research with our insurance authority, identified that it would likely be very unwise to install a stop sign at a location where the traffic counts, where the state mandated and state standards for traffic speeds and traffic counts don't require a stop sign. The issue is that if the city took extra action outside of what the state standards are for traffic, that would put the city at risk if there were an accident there. So the issue is not over. First of all, if you look in the back corner of the room, Roy is here very conveniently from CJPIA, the California Joint Insurance Authority. And he's not here because of this item. He's here because he travels around and goes to council meetings once in a while. But CJPIA is our advisor on liability and insurance items. And so I informed the council that I was going to bring this back to them, and that will likely be either in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, for the council to hear the liability issues and then to make a fresh determination if they would want to install the stop sign or not.
And sir, we're just responding. Please, thank you. Thank you. Hmm? Is there anything else?
Yeah, so I anticipate that that the staff will bring back to council a fuller discussion on the liability concerns of taking that action, but then the council can determine what action is appropriate to take.
Thank you. And Noah, you had some comments?
Yes, we had talked about some additional traffic calming items that may work in place or in lieu of a stop sign, and I know the Public Works Advisory Board, when they visited this item, had started to explore that. And is that true that you're also, from the staff perspective, starting to look at, okay, how can we calm the traffic without creating a liability risk for the community?
Yes, in fact, the reason we're not bringing that item to you tonight is to give Public Works a couple of weeks to come up with some drawings for other ways that we could help calm traffic at that corner. And in fact, at our staff meeting last week, we identified some money and set some money aside. Should the council want to in place some traffic calming measures that don't conflict with the California Road Code, but for example, bulbing out the curbs there so the crosswalk is shorter, so there's a narrower space to go through, which would do two things: it would slow down traffic, and it would give pedestrians a shorter walk across the street. That's one way of calming traffic. So. In addition to, we want to give you good options. So one option will be put in a stop sign. Another option, we hope to give you 2 or 3 different options for in placing other traffic calming measures that don't conflict with the California Road Code.
Thank you. John?
This is in reference to Mr. Nelson, David Nelson's comments regarding the... Oh, okay, I thought you said something. Sorry. Regarding the need for public education on the cost of the wastewater treatment plant, on the 17th of August from 5 to 6, there will be a session held at the Senior Center to discuss the overall project in detail. And so I would invite you to come at that time and or watch that on closed circuit TV. So you might get more information at that time. So thank you.
Okay. Noah, did you have another one?
Yes, I do. There were a number of comments that I think were important for us to respond to. One, to Ms. Stewart regarding preparation for potential El Nino. Our city staff has done quite a bit of work with stormwater management preparation, including contracting with CCCs, the men's colony work crews, and hiring goats to help maintain the flow of the creek channel. And then we kind of bit the bullets and did fund with Cayucas the armoring of the wastewater treatment plant, which is not a fun thing to do, knowing that we're going to be transitioning out of the area, but recognizing that every year that plant's down there, there is risk of flooding in that location. So we're moving as fast as we can to get it out of there, but in the short term, we felt like it was prudent to do some work. And I know staff's looking at other things that we can do, but it's a really good thing to bring up and keep an eye on, because we know how much destruction was caused during the last one. Also, just regarding public comments, we have also added a number of accessibility items so that people can work along with the council and staff, and that includes a YouTube station that the city manager launched, so you can go to direct go to the YouTube Morro Bay station and actually access specific points in meetings at order, instead of having to watch the whole meeting or a replay and wait until you get to a section that you'd like to see, which I think is really good. Launched the Facebook page, and then also working with 97.3 FM, the community radio, to have those meetings replayed. And I know there's some really other good ideas that we're working on right now to make the website more accessible and so forth. So good points there. And regarding the wastewater treatment plant water reclamation facility, I think it's important to make sure that everyone realizes we're going to be talking about this under item D6, but we haven't made any distinct decisions on treatment technology, and we're going to be looking at those very closely. I don't know if it's appropriate to read the goals of the project, which we have arrived at through a really strong public outreach component to this point. Should I briefly run those over?
If you have them right there, that'd be great.
And I think Mr. Nelson brought up some good points, and it's important that people understand the direction we're going on a large scale, and as we move forward, we're going to be able to get more specific about the different items, and a lot of those need to be determined. But here are the goals as developed with the community workshops that we held to date. First is produce tertiary disinfected wastewater in accordance with Title 22 requirements for unrestricted urban irrigation in a cost-effective manner for all ratepayers. Designed to produce reclaimed wastewater for potential users, which could include public and private landscape areas, agriculture, or groundwater recharge. Coordinate with a master water reclamation plan that will develop a phased approach for bringing on recycled water customers in a cost-effective manner. develop treatment alternatives that are compatible with the widest range of likely uses, allow for on-site composting, design for energy recovery, design to treat contaminants of emerging concern, design to allow for other possible municipal functions such as city corporation yard and so forth, and ensure compatibility with neighboring land uses. So those are the guiding principles that we're working for. And there's also some great information on our facilities master plan, which D6 is building off of to achieve construction of the new water reclamation facility wastewater treatment plant on the Rancho Colinas site, and looking at all the different conveyance opportunities and options. So a lot of decisions left to be made, and I definitely would encourage people to visit our website, which has most of those laid out, and we're going to be improving those, as you'll see with the project management contract that we're talking about later on D6. Also, with Mr. Nelson, and regarding the smokestacks, the holes in the power plant smokestacks, I'm the representative to the Air Pollution Control District, and as you know, I've been going back and forth with their staff, and they did just sign the permit closure agreements with Dynegy, and that does include an ongoing monitoring requirement for Dynegy. As long as those holes are open, Dynegy will be required to monitor and report those, and I have assurances from the Air Pollution Control District staff that they're going to be watching that very closely. At this point, they've expressed to me no concerns with any sort of pollution coming out of there. I know you may disagree with that, but they have incorporated that requirement so that there will be ongoing monitoring, which was, I think, in direct response to your concerns that you raised. So it's important to know that. So thanks for the time on that.
Great. And a lot of good questions on there. One more follow-up on, there was a comment from Mr. Martoni about closed door meeting, and for the public, that was closed session meeting. So closed session meetings for property negotiations, employee negotiations for union contracts, et cetera. And typically, any of those items through negotiations come to open session when the final decision is made. Today, at the very beginning of this meeting, we had closed session report, and we had 4 items on our closed session agenda today prior to this meeting. And according to the Brown Act, we discussed those 4 items, but no reportable action was taken. And so I'm not sure exactly what Mr. Martoni was speaking to, but if there's any reportable action, it will take place in open session. And I don't know if there's any other response for Cerrito Peak, or if there was any question on that or not. I think that covered it, though. Mr. Buckingham.
Not on Cerrito Peak, but if I could briefly expand on 2 other things. One great comment by Susan on preparation for flooding, and last October, November, and December, we completely cleared Morrow Creek of perhaps even cleared too much brush out of Morrow Creek, but so a complete clearing was done of Morrow Creek. There's certainly silt in there, but that has been accomplished. And also on the issues with dollar amounts and wastewater treatment plant, we should all be careful pointing at specific dollar amounts, because often they're not sort of an apples to apples comparison. So, for example, the Los Osos plant right now is at $61 million, but that's just construction, and so there are other pieces of that, including project management, or the planning phase, and much of the piping and the lift stations. So that was for construction of the wastewater treatment plant itself. The $75 million phase 1 project for City of Morro Bay is all of the infrastructure required, from new wastewater lines, new pump stations, and the entire effort from environmental project management all the way through construction for the project.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? I think there was one more about record for meeting minutes, and I'll look to Dana for that comment. Is that something that actually it's been declared on the record here for this meeting minutes? That's on YouTube? How can you? Okay, all right. So as far as that was the last meeting minutes, so do we want to just approve that with your review? Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Thanks for all that. And we'll move on to our consent. And our consent agenda is open, so we'll take public comment for any item on consent. We'll open up public comment for anybody who'd like to speak to the consent. Seeing none, I'll close public comment for consent. And I'll take, are there any items to be pulled? Any items to be pulled?
Yes, I actually would. I would like to comment on A2, also A3, and then A5.
And A5. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve items A1 and A4 and A6.
And we may have already approved A4.
Thank you. We did A1 and A6. Thanks for that, Christine.
Sure. Do I so move for approval of
We have a
A1?
We have a motion to approve items A1 and A6. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Heading. Motion by Ms. Johnson. And any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. And now moving on to item A2. Matt.
I was asked a question recently about the project bids for project managers and how they went out and how it came to be that we had one person responding to the bid. And so with that, it's like, and it seemed kind of like obvious there would be a problem if there's only one person that bid for that. But however, after I talked with Rick Sauerwein today, we had...
So, excuse me, this is item A2.
Did I put it? What am I doing?
We're on
oh my
the
gosh.
consent. So for
I put on the wrong one.
A2
Sorry,
approval.
Rick. I'm ahead of myself. Okay, so not
item,
A2.
okay.
How about, so that can go to consent, but then I
Okay.
had a comment about A3.
Okay.
Dave Buckingham and I went to ceremony celebrating Jeff Olson retiring from Morro Bay Fire Department, and that was, I think, last week. And so I just wanted, instead of just putting on a consent agenda, I wanted to put it out there a little bit more out loud in the public and thanking Jeff for his many years of service to the city of Morro Bay. And so I just wanted to put a little bit more public outreach for that.
Matt, would you like to read the proclamation? Is that something you want to do, or you
Well,
just
actually,
want to?
actually, I already did.
Okay. All
But
right. Okay. Good.
But I didn't know if we were going to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hey, I'm dealing with this. And then A5, I also wanted to pull because I wanted to talk about the monies being spent on the major maintenance and repair plan for the existing wastewater treatment plant. That this $465,000 is, and I was talking to Rick about it today because Rob's not in town. I just wanted folks to know that going forward, we still have to have a plant being kept up, that we're going to have to keep it up while we're building our new plant, and that $465,000, if you wanted to look and see what's being done, so it's not just money being thrown to the wind, it's actually very important to keep this thing running for Morro Bay and Cayugas.
Okay. Great.
And with that, I would move to...
Approve items A2, 3, and 5?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion by Matt to approve items A2, A3, and A5. Any further, we have a second by Noah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. So that completes our consent agenda, and now we will move on to, we have no public hearings. We're moving on to new business. And the first item on the agenda, D1, is approval of a settlement agreement for Johnny Medina versus City of Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo Superior Court, case number 14CV-0214. And that would be Mr. Pannoni.
Thank you, Mayor. This item involves a project that was originally approved back in 2010, and then there was a whole process that was gone through because there was an amendment that was requested by the applicant. The amendment was approved by the Planning Commission and then appealed to the City Council. The City Council decided to grant the appeal and go back to the original Planning Commission approval, which was granted in 2010. And then there was a final map that was submitted in 2014. This was a subdivision approval, and a final map was submitted by the applicant, but because of the form of the final map, staff didn't believe it met the requirements of the approved tentative map, and because of that, the developer sued, and there was a mediation that was held at the requirement of the court, and the mediator was able to get the two parties to agree on what the project was that was approved, and in simple terms, the sticking point was a driveway a driveway apron, and whether there'd be one driveway apron or two driveway aprons, and how close to the bike trail and the ash that driveway apron should be. And the settlement agreement provides that it will be specifically one driveway apron for two driveway entrances, and a final map will yet need to be approved by the City Council. And if that final map is approved, then this settlement agreement says that the lawsuit will be dismissed at no cost to the city. And what's on your agenda is approval of the settlement agreement.
Great, thanks, Joe. Any questions from council? Council, any questions?
Yes, I would like Mr. Pannoni just briefly to touch base on the environmentally sensitive habitat area, and knowing that that's one of the key concerns that the many neighbors brought up in their petition, and something that is addressed in the agreement.
Correct. It's addressed and taken care of to the point of what the Planning Commission and City Council originally required.
Christine.
Thanks very much for the update. You made it a little more clear than I think it really is, but I appreciate that clarity. A question I received today from one of the neighbors that I wanted to ask, and then I know that there are people to speak on this tonight. There may be further questions I think that they'll want some clarification on. But in addition, previous conditions placed on the development, they still stand. These are just the sticking points that are in the settlement agreement. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Okay, so those things were not in dispute, but these particular issues were.
Correct.
That's why we don't see the other conditions on the settlement agreement.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay, and so for clarification, I think you did do that in your opening statement. This is, I think, from public comment. We had some comment about closed session items. I think this is an example of that. So we had this particular item that is before us. Historically went through planning commission, previous city council approved, went through litigation, entered litigation. We had closed session meetings through this time, and then all those, now the action is coming to open session, and here it is before us today, and we're having that discussion with public input. So with that, I'll open up public comment for anybody who'd like to speak to item D1 and the approval agreement for Johnny Medina versus City of Morro Bay. Anybody who'd like to speak to this? Public comment is now open.
Hi, I'm Michelle Arate, owner of 351 and 361 Vashon. I'm representing over 200 plus petition signers interested in seeing that previous conditions set by Planning and City Council from 2009 to 2012 be upheld. Our major concern is on page 10, item 3 of the planning conditions of the February 14th, 2012 City Council meeting. It states that the applicant shall submit a new house design that fits within the building pad of 900 square feet and within the 50-foot ESHA buffer for review. Staff has determined that the parcel is still developable, therefore reduction of the buffer was not granted for development of this property. Will we be notified of his new house plans prior to acceptance by staff is one of our questions. And then how will the conditions be enforced? We suggest a citizens task force. There are over 200 citizens who would gladly volunteer. I would like to read now a letter that Abe Perigian sent. He's the past president of the condos that are right next to the creek. He states that there have been numerous conditions and restrictions placed on Mr. Medina over the years regarding his request to bypass the city's requirements in order to proceed with his project. To my knowledge, he has not performed any of the city's requirements and instead filed a lawsuit against the City of Morro Bay in an attempt to coerce the city into complying with his demands. Mr. Perigian states he is unable to understand why Medina's demands are even being considered without compliance of all prior conditions. I can understand why the city may wish to approve the settlement agreement and be rid of all future legal costs, but what does it say to those of us who have observed all requirements in the past? Please look at Mr. Medina's past performances to compliance with requests and legal requirements which he has flagrantly ignored throughout the years. Thank you, Abe Perigian. And I would just like to say in closing that I'd like to bring your attention to the rusty, decrepit shed that Mr. Medina placed on the creek bank. And I was just wondering if this is how he shows us his promise that he said he had a concern for the ESHA and that he wants to improve the area. Over the years, we have had to speak with him on many times about removing trash that he dumped in a 25 by 50 foot area where he just dumped trash. We had pictures of it in 2009. So anyway, I'll leave you with that, and we're wondering about the creek bed and the shed and if it can be removed. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment is open.
My name is Betty Winholtz, and I am concerned about this area because of the ESHA, and any ESHA in town is a public resource, and we all get to use and enjoy those. One of the conditions that I read in the mediations number 6, which talks about that Mr. Medina has reported that he will stake out the boundaries of the ESHA. And when I went out yesterday to look for those, there were none. And so I'm not understanding how that fits with, does he not have to do those until mediation's concluded? Or the way it reads, it sounds like they should already be there because he's reported that they're there. And if they're there, I don't recognize them. And so maybe someone could point them out. And I would like to second Ms. Arte's concerns about previous planning conditions and hope that they will all be enforced, and particularly the size of the house and its location.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, bring it back to staff and council. And maybe we can get some responses from staff on some of these comments. I know we did have a submittal of your letter right here. I don't know, Joe, if you were able to review that, and if you can respond to some of the questions and concerns about previous conditions and how we're going to be enforcing those. I think there was a lot of talk from council about their concern over Mr. Medina's past performance and whether or not, and the concern over the ESHA, and then the house design question about fitting within the footprint, and maybe we can get those questions addressed. Joe, maybe you could start off with conditions and enforced.
One of the benefits of having this settlement agreement is now we have Mr. Medina signing a contractual document where he obligates himself to do these certain things, including the requirement that he not only has to post the survey, he has to submit to the city something signed by a civil engineer indicating that that was done. I don't know whether we've received that, but if we haven't, it's one of the requirements that will need to be satisfied for this settlement agreement to be able to go forward. With regard to the review of the project itself, this is the subdivision map, and Mr. Graham may be able to add to this, but the process for reviewing the project will be another step that's taken for this project. And as to the conditions, there's nothing in this agreement, as we said earlier, that obviates or eliminates any of the previous Planning Commission approvals for those land use entitlements.
Great. Scott?
Yes, I mean, more down that road. The project will come forward. They will submit their final map package. In fact, they've submitted pieces of that in the past to us, and we've recently requested that they kind of pull that back and put a whole package together and give that to us. And then they'll also be giving us a submittal package for the individual home later on down the road after we final the map. And so they'll be held to all the conditions as we plan review those components of the project for compliance with the settlement agreement and the conditions of approval that were approved for the map and the associated development.
Okay. And so going back to some of the questions about staking out where the ESHA is, that goes back to the survey that's required that will have to be approved. Is that correct?
A certified engineer will have to sign that that survey has been done.
Okay, which we have not received yet.
I don't think so.
I'm not aware whether we have it or not.
They basically, but before we get that, he can't proceed forward until those things are happening.
It's one of the requirements, and so as part of the plan check process for the map, we'll require them to do that if they haven't already done so.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Any other questions from council to my left? Christine or Matt? Christine?
Well, I just want to make sure that all the questions were answered sufficiently, because I think we've discussed this. Obviously, to talk about litigation, you have to go into closed session. So we've been talking about it and probably have a quicker uptake on what it is. So I just want to make sure that the neighborhood understands. So will the 2010 Planning Commission restrict, so yes, everything that came before, all of those things will stay. And in addition, he has some things to do in terms of, we've established one driveway and the responsibility is on him to get the ESH in order. So
one driveway apron.
Well, excuse me. Yes, one driveway apron. Okay, and then how will we know when the house is approved? So in general, Scott, just for folks who don't do it every day, how will they know when the house is, when all these conditions are met and then someone brings a project?
They wouldn't normally know. The discretionary process has been completed at this point, and they're coming into the ministerial process of submitting an application for a building permit, say, for the construction of the actual home. There'll be a phase prior to that, which is for the final map, final parcel map that they submit.
Will they have the poster like we often see now, the bright yellow poster?
It'll be, no, it'll be the orange one indicating that the permit's been issued.
Okay.
But it'll be for the building permit.
Okay.
We post all sites with that orange.
Okay, and then staff people could always follow up with you to see the process. And would this be on the Planning Commission process?
So we do have every Planning Commission meeting we have the current projects list, and it gives a status for projects not only in the planning process but also in the building process. So they could check there if they like. We also post that on the city's website as well. So.
Okay, so people, it sounds to me like people want to track it, so just making sure that they know how to do so. Okay.
So those locations would be available.
Okay, and then will it be enforced? We're obviously invested in this agreement, so we will be taking care to enforce this.
The first major enforcement is a building permit won't be issued unless all of the conditions necessary to get the building permit will be issued. Then there'll be building inspections, planning inspections. Then there'll have to be a final certificate of occupancy that'll have to be approved before the project can receive its utilities and have occupancy. So there's several enforcements. And then if after the project is built there's some violation, we have a new code enforcement process that we'll be using.
Okay, great. And then, so in terms of the shed, that would be something that should be submitted to the city if they have concerns right now about a shed that's in that property. Should that be something that going into our code enforcement phase, which is coming up pretty soon?
They could submit their concern to the Community Development Department.
Okay, great.
You can go on our website. My email's on there. This is the department email.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for your patience, everyone up here in the dais, to walk through those things. I hope that helped clarify things for folks. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. Matt? No? John?
Just one comment for follow-up, Scott. It does say and the public comment that was made was specifically regarding the issue and the survey markers. And indeed, in the settlement agreement on page 2, item number 6, it indicates that Medina reports that the boundary of the ESH on the property has been surveyed and survey markers have been set, and that he shall provide the city with a certification from a licensed land surveyor indicating the boundary markers occupy the positions as indicated on the parcel map. And what I'm hearing is that has not been done according to the neighbor? I don't know that it, I've been told that they did mark it, the location of it. I've not personally seen it. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's something that if it's not out there, or if it was out there at one point and it's been removed, or the stakes fell over or whatever, they'll have to restake it and put it back out there. I mean, it's that simple. Along with the certification being brought forward from the licensed land surveyor indicating the boundary markers. They will comply with every component of the conditions. Okay. I assure you. Okay.
No? Anything?
Yeah, so we have confirmed that the 900 square foot pad size is still in effect.
If you look at the attached exhibits to the agreement, you see there the footprint of the house outside of the ESH buffer location. The point behind there wasn't that the footprint be 900 square feet. They estimated that the footprint that was left was approximately that, but that it be outside of the setbacks that were approved for the project and outside of the ESH buffer, which this footprint shows. Whether it's 900 square feet or not, I don't know. I have not calculated it out. But again, it just estimated what that approximate footprint was. You can see that the line's not straight, so I think they probably was estimate or guesstimate.
Okay. And then regarding to the environmentally sensitive habitats, item number 7 in these conditions, which will be held, is the restoration plan. And this language is very strong and says prior to or concurrently with the final map submittal, Medina shall deliver to the city a restoration plan for the ESH prepared by a qualified biologist as required by Planning Condition 4 and the biology provisions of the environmental conditions to the coastal development permit. The ESH restoration plan shall be reasonably satisfactory to the city. So basically, this project cannot move forward until the city signs off on the restoration plan, and the restoration plan needs to be delivered to the city, and it's his responsibility to do that. Is there going to be an opportunity for the public at some point to review that plan? Because clearly there's a trust issue within the neighborhood and with Medina's relationship amongst the neighbors. How could a neighbor help ensure that not only are the conditions of this restoration plan met to be signed off, but going into the future, if there are future violations, how would we be able to respond and enforce on those?
They could file a complaint. Ultimately, they're going to submit the restoration plan to us, and they're going to get it to a point, I assume, where we can accept it, and that mitigation is going to describe how the restoration is to take place. It's going to probably give benchmarks for time as to when you're supposed to establish these and how they're established, and it's probably going to give maintenance requirements along with it. Typically, that's what they look like when you see them, and they'll be required to. They'll have coverage requirements that go along with those, and it'll be a time frame, and they'll have to give us updates for those studies over time. I mean, it's not a minor thing. I mean, it's something that's fairly complicated. It's also a public document, so anybody would be able to come in and ask for it and take a look at it once we receive it.
And in fact, following up on that, when the final map comes to the council, we could include that plan with that submittal.
Thanks. We have questions to the left. I just have one question for Mr. Sauerwein. I had a discussion with Mr. Livick prior to the meeting, and he pointed out a minor nuance on the drawing. I just wanted to get some clarification from you, Rick. I know we talked about this just previously, but just for the record, just want to discuss that. And in the settle agreement, it says basically we are approving this draft document. And there was, an engineering question on the alignment of the apron and the driveway. It's very subtle. Actually, Rob brought that to my attention. We talked about it. It's the same drawing. I just wanted to understand that, if there actually is some sort of engineering technicality to this. We're looking at a drawing that kind of puts it in a specific place. But if it's not exactly correct, does that engineering requirement take precedent over what we're looking at on this drawing? Maybe you can respond.
After our discussion, Mr. Mayor, I took a look at the settlement agreement in the context of this misalignment, and I think the city's amply covered under paragraph 3 and paragraph 9 that require the applicant to resubmit their plans for final map approval, and also to make sure that that driveway alignment is in compliance with ADA regulations.
Okay.
And just for the record, Mayor, this map actually isn't an exhibit to this. This was just submitted because in closed session you had requested to have a map, and that's why this map is here. There's a final map still has to be prepared.
Okay, great. And I think that we had some discussion at length over whether it wasn't one driveway apron or 2 driveway aprons, and through our discussion, we were encouraged through the legal manners to work some things out. And I think it was good work and a good compromise in the settlement. So I just wanted to thank everybody's input on that. Any other discussion or comments for this? Any final, if there's no further comments, then I would take a motion to approve item D1 as a recommendation stated by staff.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Heading, second by Mr. Smuckler. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. That concludes item D1, and we'll be moving on to item D2. Item D2 is discussion of the Visitor Center service contract and lease agreement for city-owned property located at 695 Harbor Street. And this will be Mr. Buckingham.
Yes, thank you, Wood. As AGP gets the presentation up. So I'll just, as we do that, I'll make one comment that we actually released the draft staff report for this item 3.5 weeks ago for some of the issues that are of more interest to the community. Is whenever the staff can, we're going to increase transparency, to include more opportunity for the public to provide input to you, to the staff, and to organize. We'll try to get staff reports for some of these big items out as early as possible. So we're 3.5 weeks into great comment on this one, and this is what to do about the Visitor Center. So the purpose of the presentation is to gain council direction for the staff to finalize a contract with the Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce for the operation of the Morro Bay Visitor Center. A quick outline of the chamber proposal, just so everybody has it in mind. This is not all of the details, but the proposal for a visitor center operated or managed by the Chamber of Commerce would be located in the lobby of the city-owned building at 695 Harbor Street. It will employ the same staff as the current visitor center, assuming that they would like to transition to that location, and we anticipate they would. It would be open from 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. 7 days a week and 362 days a year. Be operated for the $50,000 that was budgeted by the City Council, which is $50,000 less than the current visitor center under the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau contract. The Visitor Center will open on October the 1st, 2015, with a 1-year, 9-month contract ending on June the 30th of 2017, and would be managed by the Chamber of Commerce. There are a number of alternatives. Should you choose not to accept the staff's recommendation, you could certainly direct the staff to modify this agreement with the chamber in some substantial way. Direct staff to seek an agreement with one of the other entities that responded to the Visitor Center RFP. You could choose not to approve this agreement and direct staff to issue another RFP. Or you could not approve the agreement and direct staff to develop a plan for the city to directly manage a visitor center, perhaps even at the current location, but that would certainly be an additional cost to the city. The fiscal impact of this recommendation, the chamber proposal is within the city's fiscal year 16 visitor center budget. It will cost about $37,500 from October of 15 until June of 16, and then it commits the city to a $50,000 expenditure in fiscal year 17 budget, costing the full $50,000 from June of 16 to June of 17. It is a $50,000 or 50% savings from the last several years of visitor center operation at the current facility under a management contract from the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. Two items of previous council direction, sort of why are we sitting here. The council budgeted $50,000 for FY16 as the city general fund contribution for the visitor center. As noted, that was half of what the city had budgeted in previous years, and therefore we needed to go out with an RFP to see who could be responsive. And also City Goal 6B directs staff to, quote, evaluate, analyze, and present to the council alternate models for partnerships between the city and both the Chamber of Commerce and the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. So one of the things you've asked us to do is take a look at how we're partnering with those organizations, and this flows from that as well. A few items of background that are sort of important to the bigger picture here. So until 2002, the Morro Bay Visitor Center was managed by the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sorry, 2012. managed by the Chamber of Commerce down in the Embarcadero. In 2013, for various reasons, the Visitor Center contract was taken from the Chamber and awarded to the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. Those reasons included some management concerns with the Chamber and an active desire by the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau to manage the Visitor Center. The Morro Bay Tourism Bureau has operated the Visitor Center at the current location since 2013, and the Visitor Center has been funded primarily by city general fund revenue. Sort of an important point, before the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau managed the Visitor Center, up to $33,000 a year in T-bid assessed funds were allocated to help support the Visitor Center. But when the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau was awarded the contract, they no longer provided any funds to help fund the Visitor Center. A little more information on Morro Bay Visitor Centers. In 2011 and 12, the city actually budgeted $120,000 for the Visitor Center, turned that money over to the Chamber, and in 2009-10, that number was $160,000. In 2013, the city entered a contract with the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau for the operation of the Visitor Center. In subsequent years, the general fund contribution has been about $100,000 a year, right about $102,000 actually. In the fiscal year 15 budget process, the City Council passed a resolution indicating, as part of the budget resolution, indicating a desire to reduce general fund contributions in several areas, including events and other Morro Bay Tourism Bureau activities such as the Visitor Center. And in the course of researching this issue, the staff identified that actual Visitor Center operating costs to the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau were about $94,000 in fiscal year 14 and $83,000 in fiscal year 15. A little bit of background on the building at 695 Harbor Street, because this is also sort of part of the issue here. The status of that city-owned building is closely related to this issue. So the old fire station there at 695 Harbor includes 6 offices, 2 bathrooms, one of which is ADA accessible, several hundred square feet of additional space, including a lobby, a kitchen, and a meeting room. And a parking lot with 8 spaces and an electric vehicle charging station. And I'll also note that it is adjacent to the library parking lot, which often has plenty of additional parking available. In 2013, January of 13, the city leased the entire building at 695 Harbor to the Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce. This hoped to improve business climate in the city of Morro Bay by first providing a very affordable space for the Chamber of Commerce to operate from. And second, the Chamber was to operate an incubator business activity, providing affordable office space to start up small businesses on a limited 1 to 3 year term in order to help them grow to the point of sustainability and thereby improving the economic vitality of Morro Bay. The lease amount for that building, the Chamber building, the old firehouse building, is $1 a year, and the current lease agreement requires the Chamber to pay for all utilities and most minor maintenance. A little bit more background. The Chamber sort of incubator business program has been generally unsuccessful. No for-profit small businesses have grown through and out of the building into the local community. The incubator office spaces are currently held by 4 nonprofits. That's not to say it's not going to good use necessarily. It's just it's not achieving that incubator business aspect. So the program has provided affordable office space to a number of laudable activities, including the Community Resource Office, 97.3 The Rock, the Community Quota Fund, and recently the Morro Bay Historical Society. The building has also provided an affordable home for the Chamber. So that's a little bit of background on the building there at 695 Harbor. Discussion. So most folks agree that tourism and visitor activities lifts many boats. All boats are lifted when there's good tourism. That is the lodging industry benefits from tourists who stay overnight. Retail, restaurants, and leisure businesses benefit from visitors who shop, eat, and pay for recreational activities. And the city benefits from the transient occupancy taxes and the sales taxes paid by tourists and visitors. Lodging in the city is primarily represented by the TBID, the Tourism Business Improvement District, and the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. Other businesses can be effectively represented by the Chamber, and the city's sort of representatives obviously are the council and the general fund. The visitor center model in many cities includes support from various entities. In many cities, the visitor center is managed and operated primarily by the Chamber of Commerce with support from the city. And actually, not on this item, but I had a nice chat today with the Economic Development Director of the Paso Visitor Center. Very interesting, the Paso Visitor Center is nested with the Paso Chamber of Commerce. You walk into the visitor center, and then there's a door at the back that leads into the Chamber of Commerce offices, very similar to what this proposal is. But most of the city contributes general fund money as well as the chamber to the operation of that visitor center. In cities with robust lodging improvement districts, which we are, those organizations often also help support the visitor center, as was the case in Morro Bay until the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau won the contract in 2013, and at that point they stopped providing financial assistance to the operation of the visitor center. In Morro Bay in recent years, the visitor center effort has been financially supported solely by the city with general fund dollars with no direct contribution from either the chamber or from TBID assessed funds. Staff believes Morro Bay should move toward shared responsibility of the visitor center with the chamber contributing, with the TBID contributing, and with the city contributing as that rising tide hopefully lifts all the boats. Important as we consider this possible move and the term of the contract, the staff sees the upcoming 2 years as potentially significant transition years in tourism operations and relationships, and visitor center operations and support, and in city infrastructure. So a number of things are sort of impacting this. Following some years of turbulence, the chamber appears poised to regain viability. Second, as directed, staff is researching alternate models for our partnership with the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. That will likely be coming to you in October, November, as you've asked us to look at alternate models for the chamber and tourism. The upcoming years should include a thorough analysis of the best visitor center model for Morro Bay. Is the best model a pure bricks and mortar model? Is it a pure electronic model? Is it a combined bricks and mortar electronic model? Is it a smaller manned kiosk version? With that in mind, a new purpose-built visitor center could be included as part of the possible Centennial Stairway Embarcadero Downtown Connector concept plan. So as the public, our businesses downtown in the Embarcadero zone, and our residents start to work through some concepts for an Embarcadero downtown concept plan, sort of through the Centennial Stairway area, a redesign of that area could include a bricks and mortar purpose-built visitor center as part of that plan. So for those reasons, we see this as a important transition period, and thus don't want to make super long-term decisions right now with regard to the visitor center. So the visitor center decision should be seen in context with those items addressed above. This is a 2-year transition period that could culminate with a new purpose-built visitor center, or it might not. The city is working towards shared responsibility for the visitor center, shared with the chamber and with the lodging industry. Partnering with the Chamber may assist that organization regaining viability, a potential benefit to the general economic development in Morro Bay. And the city owns the building at 695 Harbor, and the proposed visitor center contract achieves a $100,000 savings over 2 years. A number of things on the visitor center proposal itself. So as directed in the budget process, so that was all sort of background and important information to set the stage. This is the proposal from the chamber coming now, or the process the city went through. So as directed in the budget process, staff sought proposals from local entities to provide visitor center services in Morro Bay within the $50,000 budget. The city received 3 proposals, one from the Chamber of Commerce, one from Kay's Summer Cottage, and one from the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau. The proposals from both the Chamber and Kay's were considered responsive. That is, they met the requirements outlined in the city's RFP. The proposal from the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau was for $90,000 annually, and thus was considered non-responsive since it was substantially more than the $50,000 budget required in the request for proposal. One slide each on the Tourism Bureau and on the K's responses. So the Tourism Bureau proposed to keep the visitor center in its current location, to charge $90,000 for the service. As we went through a discussion with them, they reduced their costs slightly as they identified that their actual costs in fiscal year 15 were closer to $81,000, not $100,000 as was budgeted. Their proposal includes a 20% management fee, so $16,000 fee for them to manage the visitor center, and the rest of the costs were direct costs associated with operating the visitor center for rent, utilities, and labor. The proposal did not include any direct contribution of TBID assessed funds or any in-kind contribution such as a waived management fee. Kay's Summer Cottage offered a creative proposal to nest the visitor center in Kay's existing business on the 800 block of Main Street. Staff loved the idea, the sort of creative idea of nesting the visitor center in a business, but identified a number of concerns when compared to the chamber proposal. Those concerns included fewer dedicated parking spaces at Kay's than at the chamber location. No bathroom on site at Kay's. It would be a walk to Grandma's, whereas the chamber building has an ADA bathroom in the building. Layout, staff assessed the chamber layout as more functional, and sustainability. The chamber is a more common, more natural entity to provide visitor center services, and as we seek to sort of triangulate between the lodging industry and our retail and restaurant and service industry in the city to work to improve tourism even more, we thought that it was a better fit with the chamber. So the chamber proposal converts the lobby of the chamber building into the visitor center. I know many of you have had the opportunity to walk through and view it and sort of see the layout, but as you walk into the, I'm sorry, I should have had a diagram in here. As you walk into that building, there is a fairly large lobby. The chamber proposes to redesign that a bit, to take the big desk out, the secretary's reception desk, to put in a service counter with a computer connected to the internet, to have flyers and brochures on the walls of that lobby. And then off of either side of the lobby are the 2 chamber offices, one for the chamber director and one for the chamber administrative assistant. So the visitor center would sort of sit in the middle right as you walk in the door, and then off either side of the visitor center, similar to what Paso has, would be the chamber offices. The chamber there would be staffed just like the current visitor center, with an opportunity for the current visitor center staff to move to the chamber location. They have the same visitor center hours as all of the other proposals. All of the other proposals proposed 10 to 5 Monday to Saturday. I'm sorry, that should be Monday to Sunday, 7 days a week. So 7 days a week, 10 to 5. An added benefit of the chamber proposal is that Liz and the chamber folks normally come to work at 8, and when the chamber folks are at work and in the office on weekdays, the visitor center will be effectively open. So if you had a visitor or a tourist come to the visitor center at 8:30, park and walk in, they would find an open door. They would come into the lobby. There would be nobody sitting at the reception desk, the visitor center service desk until 10 o'clock. But whatever staff is on duty as part of their chamber duties would come out and help and provide visitor center services. We saw that as a positive. They'll provide Wi-Fi and internet computer for visitor use, and then the proposal met the $50,000 annual budget or annual cost that was budgeted by the city. A few additional functional benefits. That building is easily accessible when entering town from Highway 1. There's short-term parking in the lot of 695 Harbor, as noted, 6 spaces with a recharge station. There is longer-term, in fact, you really could do all-day parking at the library. When I walked through the lot at 3:30 this afternoon, there were 27 empty parking spaces in the library lot. So the idea is somebody could come to the visitor center and park right there in the library lot and spend the rest of their day walking in Morro Bay, which is what we'd like to encourage. There's an ADA accessible bathroom in the building, and the contract is 1 year, 9 months through the end of June 2017. So in summary, the proposed chamber operated visitor center provides a functional visitor center within the city's budget. It is essentially identical to the existing visitor center, except in a different location. It gets the chamber back into a leading role in the visitor tourism realm. It provides time for the community to further consider the best options for visitor center services in Morro Bay. It provides an impetus for further collaboration between the chamber, the TBID, and the city, and is on budget with $100,000 of savings over 2 years. So recommendation, the staff recommends that the council approves our recommendation to partner with the chamber to provide visitor center services. We recommend that you direct the staff to finalize a contract with the chamber consistent with this presentation, and that you direct staff to update the chamber lease for only the chamber area, the 2 offices and the visitor center lobby area, to go along with this contract. So one quick comment on that, I didn't put a separate slide on that, but I noted that currently the chamber leases that entire building and then subleases the various parts of it that they don't use. It was supposed to be for the incubator program. What the chamber would like to do and what the city would like to do, both, and the chamber no longer wants to be in the lease management business, in the tenant business, and the city doesn't. The city is happy to take responsibility for that building. So in addition to executing a contract with the chamber to provide visitor center operations, we would also execute a new lease with the chamber, not for the whole building, but only for the visitor center lobby and for the 2 chamber offices. And then the city would become the landlord of the rest of the space in that building. And that completes the presentation, and I'll turn it over to you, Marins.
Great. Thanks very much for that presentation. And any questions for staff? I'll look to my left. Christine, do you want to start us off with any questions? No questions? Matt?
I do have a question for you, Dave. In terms of this, it was 1 year and 8 months, you said? This contract?
1 year and 9, actually.
1 year and 9. During that 1 year and 9, what sort of oversight would staff be doing, or would chamber just be run, if this came about, would chamber just run with it, or is there some sort of oversight during that time for performance and whatnot?
There is a clause in the draft contract, so we haven't executed the contract, but we're very close with the chamber. I guess to approach this from one side, there is a draft that would allow, or a clause that would allow either the chamber or the city to terminate the contract in 30 days. And the city would want to remain very engaged in the operation of the visitor center. We've got confidence that the chamber can do this well. It is not unlikely that we may have city staff working in that building in the next 6 to 9 months, and so we see even a great potential for greater collaboration and good oversight.
So in terms of that collaboration and oversight, there's no direct plan in place yet, but that's just kind of an ongoing concept.
We'll certainly do that. I see Sam taking a note. I'm not sure that we have a written oversight plan for the current visitor center either, but we'll certainly ensure that the chamber is managing the visitor center in accordance with the terms of the contract.
Okay, thank you.
And I guess one point on that is I'm personally see it as a positive that the very good staff that staffs the current visitor center will likely be the same staff in the new location. It's almost the same deal except in a different location and for half the price.
John? Noah?
Yes, thank you. So just to work off of Mr. Makowitzki's comments, that would include then performance and financial reporting, as we've seen and that we notice now is very important.
Let me give the guy who's doing all the work on this a chance to provide some input.
Thank you. Just to add on to that, you're both correct. There's direct oversight in terms of financial reporting, as well as they're required quarterly to provide us with information related to how much things they give out when they refer people to hotels. And so that's our way of providing that oversight, where we want to make sure that they're directly and actively engaging visitors. I think that also in the past, something that hasn't really occurred probably from a city standpoint is because of the amazing staff at the visitor center itself who've been with it since prior when the chamber last had it. We've not really necessarily been directly engaged in day-to-day management because we have contracted for that. But I think we are really interested, and the chamber is very welcoming of us checking in with them even more frequently than quarterly about how it's going, how can we provide assistance to them, what do they need from us, and really how are they doing in relation to visitors. And that's a big thing we're going to be working on over this 2-year period as we work on really enhancing that kind of three-legged stool related to chamber, tourism and marketing, and the city overall.
Thank you for that. And we obviously are going to be receiving some additional public restroom access with this transition, which is a good thing. Do you have a plan, or have you started to think about the new location isn't as obvious as the current location on Morro Bay Boulevard? Have we started to think about directional signage so people that are coming in without being familiar with the town could know that there's a visitor center, but also there's additional public restrooms available?
To that question, yes, absolutely. So we know that we are going to have to update signage to direct people to the new visitor center location, and we are hopefully, once we have some information from you as to what we'll be doing, we plan on working on updating that signage.
Thank you. And then just briefly, to make sure we don't start any rumors, I'm not aware of current concerns, but I think if you were to hear the staff report, you may wonder, well, okay, what's going to happen with the current radio station, the Community Resource Connections Office, and then now the Historical Society. Do we anticipate any major change with them being located at that site in the near to midterm?
No. So there are currently 4 entities other than the chamber who occupy offices in that building. The radio station, the Community Resource Office, the Quota Fund, and then the Historical Society has sort of an office storage area. It doesn't have any windows, but it is a space in the middle of the building. There is one empty office, one other room that's completely empty right now, or at least is not actively used. We don't see any required moves in the, I don't see any required moves potentially until the middle of next year. And this all has to do with actions the council may take, organization in the city and things, but perhaps we would need one additional office space sometime in the next year, or at about a year from now, beginning of next summer. But that's perhaps. We may not need any extra office space.
Great, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you. I'd like to piggyback on some of the questions as far as just want to cover the $50,000 target. That was the goal from council. And looking at your slides, you made reference to 2013 is when the visitor center transpired. I believe that was 2012 when all that took place. And the reason I bring that up is because there was some discussion about the city and the chamber's arrangement leasing the chamber building for $1, and part of that package there was a $65,000 economic development program that was initiated, and there was some comment on whether or not gift of public funds, $1 a year lease on that. Part of the incubator program, there'd be revenue from that. Is that in essence a gift of public funds? And so I just want to clarify some of those comments. For one, I think the revenue from any incubators was supposed to be reinvested back into an economic development program. So I think that's something, maybe do a little check on that. And then going back to the visitor center that we currently have, in your slide, it identified that the actual cost was $81,000, not $100,000. So we, as council, said, hey, we want to maintain a visitor center presence. Can we do it for $50,000? And we sent out the RFP for that. So basically, the RFP came out back at $50,000. So I just want to know, and it kind of goes back to oversight. So was the response basically saying, hey, we can do it for 50 because that's what you said, or the visitor center itself only costs $30,000 to run from the chamber, will we see that difference? Because in fact, that's exactly what we saw from the Tourism Bureau who managed it in their auditing. So maybe you can respond to that.
So I directly asked those questions to the chamber, and we walked through the math together exactly on their intention for spending expenditures of that $50,000. Almost every penny is going to those 4 staff members and almost nothing else. It's only probably because they are in our facility that they're going to save enough money to be able to afford the $50,000 figure. When you lay out salary benefit, and taxes related to these employees, they're very nearly close to $40,000 to $45,000 for those figures. So we're looking at maybe only $5,000 to $10,000 for supplies and modifications to the building. So in our view as staff, I think we're very appreciative that the chamber is really kind of stepping up to expend some of its own funding outside of our proposal to make some modifications within the building for the visitor center and to really be prepared to provide this service. That includes the mobile app, which we didn't really go through on the proposal, but they're going to bring back a mobile app that will serve the entire community related to all businesses, not just chamber members in the community. They'll be providing Wi-Fi within the facility to visitors for free. They'll be providing a computer terminal for free to them as well. So there's a lot, I think, of costs that the chamber has basically offered to eat outside of this proposal. So I think we're pretty comfortable with those figures.
Okay. And so that as far as supplies, advertising, things like that, there's certain amount printing, things like that would go along with the visitor center, and that's what you're saying is going to be absorbed through this.
Correct. So any of those ancillary costs, they pretty much offer to do that.
Okay. So
also, just on your first comment was about the appropriateness of a low dollar lease. That's sort of what you're asking around. So the staff's assessment and having consultant, I'll let Joe fill in on part of the legal part here, but that it is not inappropriate for the city to encourage economic development in the city. And one way we can do that in this, let me phrase that, for the city to use general fund revenues in order to help encourage economic development in the city. And we do that in many different ways. We have that in the budget in other ways. Our assessment is what is that leasing those 2 offices to the chamber likely for $1 a year, which is what the current lease is an appropriate general fund contribution, essentially an in-kind contribution to further encouraging economic development in the city. And that visitor center space itself, I say 2 offices because the visitor center space benefits everybody, and that is an appropriate way for the city to help encourage economic development and vitality in the city.
And just to add to that, the constitutional requirement of a city not being able to let its property or money be used for, unless it's for a public purpose. A public person doesn't necessarily mean money received back. It could be other benefits that are assisting to the public, which is knowing where things are to go see in Morro Bay and that kind of thing.
Great. I just wanted to, thanks for the clarification. It was a topic in the past. Just want to make sure. And I think part of that conversation was, as you stated in our goal in your presentation, the partnership and the relationship between the city and the chamber as far as promoting economic development. I guess the only other question I have, as I recall, the initiation of the visitor center where it is, when it first took place, there was an additional $10,000 investment by the city for improvements. So I'm taking it that office furniture and all that office furniture and those types of things will be moved to the chamber as part of that visitor center. I feel as though that would be part of the visitor center that would go with us.
That is part of the discussion here. We are investigating what was improved by us and what was purchased later by the Tourism Bureau.
Okay, great, thanks.
Also say that the chamber proposal does not require the city to do a whole bunch of work in that building. There are a few things that the city will take on, for example, signage. I think we'll probably take on to help direct people to that visitor center. But the part of the chamber proposal is to make the modifications to that space to turn it into a visitor center, and they along with their proposal, they had a very nice diagram of what that would look like, both the outside of the building and floor plan inside of the building.
Great, thanks. No more questions. We'll turn it over to public comments. At this time, public comment is open. For those who'd like to speak to that, please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Walter Heath, resident of Morro Bay. The topic of improvements that were paid for by the city at the building at 255 Morro Bay Boulevard, which is privately owned, just came up, and it occurred to me that there was a fairly expensive patio constructed there. I think maybe as part of that $10,000 expenditure, and that was an expensive city funds. Nice interlocking pavers and a thing around there that now is going to go to the benefit of the landlord. I'm just kind of wondering what can be done about that. There are spaces on the lot at 695 Harbor that could stand some improving, and do you take the interlocking pavers with you, or what can be done? Can there be some concession by the landlord who owns the building with respect to that patio? I mean, that was public funds that was basically expended for the benefit of a private landlord.
Thanks, Walter. Anybody else for a public comment?
Hello, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Liz Gilson. I'm the new director at the Chamber of Commerce, and I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity for the Chamber of Commerce to hopefully take on the Visitor Center and make it a wonderful place for people to come and get information and help. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Anybody else for public comment? Looking across the audience, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back to council. Thanks for that, and I'll look to my left for starting off on discussion. Christine, if you'd lead off, that'd be great.
Sure, thanks. I appreciate all the questions you brought to the discussion, everyone up here. I thought they were very valuable and helpful. I don't know about the pavers, Walter. I think staff probably made a note of that. Thanks for another mystery. So on this topic, I have thought about it a lot, and it's exciting to have extra time on any agenda item, so hopefully that will make all of our discussion go smoothly. So it's difficult in some ways to change one thing for another, and I think there's been quite a bit of transition recently in the last 5 years or so on the visitor center. So I think what the things I was thinking about are, where does it make sense for this function to be housed? Who are the businesses that benefit most from visitor center referrals? How important is a public restroom to a visitor center? Because we don't have one officially in our visitor center now. And what can we learn from the excellent record keeping done by the visitor center staff currently? We have heard directly from the Tourism Bureau's own board members that based on the analysis that we do get quarterly from the great record keeping that the staff are doing, we find we've repeatedly been told over and over that between 8% or 10%, it seems to me that's where the number's been sitting, only 8 or 10% of the people that come into the visitor center have a question about lodging. So you've got the Morro Bay Tourism Bureau, which is running the function of the visitor center with city dollars entirely. We can see, how much the city's committing already. And the truth is folks are coming in already with a lodging in mind in Morro Bay, or there is the opportunity for our city to take in day visitors, people who are perhaps staying elsewhere in our county or perhaps stopping by, driving between, two other metropolitan areas. So by the Tourism Bureau's own reporting to us, it seems to be the case that this isn't something that drives their marketing or their heads in beds, is not people walking into a physical visitor center and asking for a hotel recommendation. And if the Tourism Bureau board, the members have stated that recently very clearly that perhaps the visitor center operation is not central to their common goals. And I think it's wise for them to take a look at what their director of tourism is doing and what their goals are for marketing their hotels as a business group. So the majority of visitors, therefore, what are they looking for? Well, they're looking for sales tax generating businesses, things like restaurants, retail, pharmacies, auto repair, where do I go kayaking, things like this. And I'm not making it up. This is what we've been learning over the past 2 years that the Tourism Bureau has been reporting to us about what people come to the visitor center for. So therefore, we have heard again from the Bureau's own board that perhaps this isn't something that they're really interested in maintaining, and in that way, by putting perhaps dollars toward it at this point. We didn't see that the Tourism Bureau took any funds to add to the fall in the cost of them doing it between the $5,000 and the $50,000 and the $100,000 between last budget and this budget. We didn't see any funds kicking in, so I can understand if they just don't feel like that's core part of their mission. However, I do believe that when you're looking at the businesses that benefit most from that walk-in traffic to our brick and mortar visitor center, they are, in general, every business then. Because even though most of the people who walk in there and have a hotel already in mind, some don't. So the Chamber, which is an organization that represents all businesses in our community, it does seem to be an appropriate fit. They can help a visitor with just about any business that we have in town, and that would be businesses that are members or businesses that are not members. And I think we want to make sure that, for me, that we stress that point, that this is a visitor center for all requests and all information to be given out equally. Certainly, everybody has the ability to bring in, my assumption is people would have the ability to bring in any kind of a brochure, whether they were a chamber member or not, and have their information displayed. Then I think I wanted to mention that I think the summer cottage was a great creative proposal, and moving forward in the next 2 years, we may wish to take a look at something like that in different parts of the city. I really appreciate Kay stepping up and proposing something to us. So I guess to wrap it up a bit here, what I'm looking at is the Chamber is able to provide the service to the visiting public. Number one, at the rate the city can afford. Number two, in a building that the city owns. Number three, where there is ample parking. Number four, where there is an electric vehicle charging station. And number five, and most importantly perhaps in my mind, is where there is a public restroom as well. Because usually when I go to a visitor center, it's because I've just driven a few hours from one destination to the other. I am curious about what there is to do there, but I might have another need that comes first. And if it's not me, maybe it's someone else in my car. So for this, so for me, I wasn't involved in the discussions that happened about how we transitioned to the current center that we have, but there is not an accessible public restroom there, so for me that's always been a question mark. But I will say I've been very impressed with the way they've been able to run the visitor center under the Tourism Bureau, and that leads me to two challenges that I do foresee. And one is that I think the Bureau staff ran a very efficient visitor center. I mean, you can see some things here about the finances, and perhaps that was just a matter of our oversight too on the cities. I would take some responsibility from the city on our financial oversight perhaps too, and not maybe watching those dollars as closely as we could have. But I definitely think the staff who work in there day to day and interface with the community and the visitors are wonderful. And I'm happy to hear that folks, my understanding is that they will transition to the new location. I certainly hope that would be the case. I think they are our best ambassadors for Morro Bay. So hopefully it wouldn't be a challenge to lose that high quality interaction in the location transfer. So hopefully that challenge we can manage. And then the second challenge is that I hope this move from one entity to another entity will not impact the ability of the Tourism Bureau and the Chamber to continue to work very collaboratively together. I think that we've made some great strides in the last several years of understanding that we have this one umbrella called economic development. And under economic development, you have functions of the Chamber that they do, encouraging all of businesses and advocating for business. And then you have the tourism piece of that, which sometimes falls into Chamber businesses and sometimes falls into the Tourism Business Improvement District, which is our hotel group. So what I hope is that this isn't seen as a move because, in the past, a council is like this group better, and then they went over here, and now they're going back over here. And I think for me, in thinking about it, realistically, most chambers do sit in a visitor center, most visitor centers do sit in a chamber. And that's just traditionally been the way it is because the chamber is our economic booster, really. So it makes sense to pair that, but I don't want it to be perceived. I find I'm talking to the audience because there's so many of you here, although none of you spoke, but I should be speaking over here to my colleagues as well. But I would not want this to be seen as a favoritism in any way. I just think it makes the most sense right now for us, given the budget that we've selected. And I think having that facility makes it just a much more fiscally responsible decision for us to do. So, but again, just wanted to say that I want to commend the efforts of Brent Hogan, the Director of Tourism, to run the Visitor Center and to collaborate very well with the members of the Chamber of Commerce. And I hope that, I know that the staff people will be doing a great job. I think that both leaders of the organizations will do well, and I think the boards will continue to work collaboratively together. So my vote is not for one entity over another, but simply for this best option for public funds at this time. So, thanks.
Well, it's been a couple weeks since we've been back on council, and there was a lot to make up for. And really, if I'd thought about it, I would have started at the other end, because then, of course, how can any of us follow that? I think she covered everything, but anyway, we'll do our best. Matt, please.
I get to go next, huh? Wow. Okay, I'm going to try, and I don't even know where to start. I like the idea of completing the triangle. Not necessarily isolating any one business entity in town. I like to combine the recreational, the dining, the lodging, with every other thing that we're doing in town with the chamber. I think that is prudent. Not to mention, the visitor center right now, it does do that. But however, I think we have, in terms of our goals, saving that money, I think that's key. Also, and I think this has been brought up a lot, is the larger vision of tourism in town. Are we just bricks and mortar? Are we talking about kiosks around town? Are we talking about some sort of using the larger cloud that people will be addressing when they come to town? So I think going forward, that's going to be positive, especially given the kind of oversight, timely oversight of the new visitor center, in terms of the city working with Sam, checking up and seeing where we're going and seeing if it's working. And other than that, that's all I've got to add. Sorry, I'm not going to take any more time.
John?
Thanks, Christine. Thank you. I want to echo what Christine said, and maybe add a couple of things. One, don't forget, tourism is the economic engine of this community. It is, and so this is an extremely important decision that we're making that has an impact on a significant number of businesses. First, let me acknowledge those of you that sent in letters and or direct emails. I appreciate that. I reviewed those. I wanted to acknowledge that publicly. Thank you for that. Two, I did some research to look at what are the successful factors that really make up a visitor center in communities that do visitors centers well, or information centers well, and I found 4 or 5 attributes. Attribute 1 was a friendly staff. 2 was close proximity or access to either a freeway, a byway, or whatever major throughput there was to the city. 3 was the availability of social media, computer slash website slash app type services, and that is a growing necessity for successful visitor centers. Where am I? 5, 4, whatever. 4, thank you. 4 was a bathroom. And actually, the 5th thing that I think was cited, at least in the successful ones that I saw, had to do with the fact that there weren't just single visitor centers in cities to gain information, but there was a bit of a dissemination of information throughout the city when that was possible. And by that I meant there were kiosks or the availability of information within certain other businesses in a community, although the visitor center became the main hub. And so looking at that, looking at our budget, I too support what staff is proposing for this year. I do believe it's an iterative process that has to grow over time, and I think it's a good start with regard to what you've recommended here. In the future, I would like to see some dissemination further into the community that would allow for the development of kiosks in certain areas, so that if somebody ended up not seeing the business center, they could indeed maybe access it at other sites, but that's a future consideration. The chamber itself, I think, is a great location. It's close proximity to the freeway, has the bathroom. It has a new strong board. I talked to several board members that are on the chamber, some with quite excellent social media / computer skill backgrounds. And I do believe the development of the app that was started 2 years ago is critical, because a significant number of people are accessing that for information about a city. The Chamber's committed not only to including Chamber members, but also a large number of, or all businesses, I should say, in the community, and not limited to just Chamber members. And so I think holding them responsible for getting that app completed is extremely important. The electric auto outlet is there. Thank goodness. And signage, that was the sixth thing, was extremely important in communities. And so that's already been talked about. I won't reiterate that. Maybe something for me that would be really important would be the reporting back to us. I'm into metrics and measuring success, and so I would ask staff to develop key measures of success in terms of what they would determine successful outcomes to be for the next year or whatever time period the contract will assume, and that we receive a report not only quarterly but as needed if there are issues that need to be reported on. So with that, I highly support what's been recommended. I think it's the fiduciary thing to do. And I also would like to thank the TBID, the Tourism Bureau, under Brent's leadership, and the existing staff, which hopefully will move over, that's that friendly key staff, for the work that they've done in the past as the visitor center has resided where it currently is. And so with that, I would highly support what is being recommended by the staff. And thank you for the excellent report.
Noah?
Thank you, and I believe that's been well said. Some of the reasons why this makes sense, and I would agree with all those. We definitely are in a transition period at this point, and I think this decision gives us some flexibility to continue to build these relationships and analyze what's going to make sense coming forward, because there's a lot of new approaches to visitor centers and welcoming. I think I completely agree that our staff at the current visitor center who've been through the different iterations of the transitions we've gone through are indeed excellent ambassadors, and I do notice that a lot of our citizens on their own are very friendly and outgoing with visitors and willing to help a hand to guide and direct people around and let them know about their favorite surf spots or not. The other thing that I think is important to notice is the location. While it's not a direct path of travel, most people are heading towards the Rock through the downtown area, getting to the Embarcadero. I think it is a natural hub for a lot of things that a visitor would like to find in Morro Bay and would be very helpful for them to be within proximity to. And we've talked about some, but just to list them really quickly, I mean, you have the parking, the library, the post office, our transit center, the community center, city hall and fire departments, and of course, public restrooms throughout those different areas. So I think this is a natural hub for where a visitor could go and find comfort and guidance. So I'm happy with that. I think the mobile app component it's going to be an excellent addition to finish off and kind of complete that loop of those that really want to have that personal touch, or those that are very tech savvy and maybe even just driving through on Highway 1 looking for some services and not even pulling off. The app could actually help draw them. And just overall, I think that the location with its current uses and different organizations there, I think it's still compatible with those. And I'm willing to support this and look forward to improved overall relations with all of our different partners.
Great, thanks. It's hard to follow up with everybody's comments like that, but you know what, first of all, you know, the overall presentation of this kind of laid a lot of this out. When the chamber existed on the waterfront, along with the visitors center, you know, as it was presented to us, there was, you know, a transition there, both with the chamber operating the facility and the high rent of that facility on the waterfront, and the city partnership there, entering into an economic development component amongst three entities, and that as it turned out, it was with the Tourism Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce. The Tourism Bureau obviously took over the Visitors Center, and actually with the initial director of Tourism Bureau, Karen Moss, also did a great job in opening up that as under her leadership, and then of course Brent took that on. We've all spoken about the staff that is currently there at the visitor center, and I think it's along with all the attributes that everybody listed, including bathrooms. I think that's one common theme that we go on. It's interesting after having some time off, and I think all of us had some time off, maybe whether it was vacation, traveling, or whatnot. You always seem to keep an eye on other communities in which you are in. My wife and I went up to Oregon, and when you talk about some of the apps, Oregon had some great apps and websites to do that. Quite frankly, some of the tools there weren't quite as intuitive as they could be, but it's the one-on-one people really that help guide you, and that's what we have with our visitor center. We can present, apps to help guide people, but I think what we're all drawn to, whether or not it's going to a bike shop, or a pharmacy, or a real estate office, or a restaurant, and a kayak store asking for different direction. Everybody in the town, in my recollection, are stewards and ambassadors to tourism. I think case in point, when we talk about the location of the tourism, or at least the location as proposed as having a visitor center in the existing chamber, it's also close to City Hall. About a year ago, there were some foreign tourists traveling through, and they were lost. And one of our planning staff members identified that. They actually came into the City Hall, and she walked them downtown to they couldn't find their hotel, so walked them back to their hotel. So that's just another example of the one-on-one connection for people and our visitor center. So. Overall, I think we've had both a presentation that told the story of where we're at. There is some timing here. The visitor center, the lease is going to be ending soon. There was the overall message from this council as far as pulling back the investment on that visitor center, and that doesn't mean that we're not investing in economic development or tourism by any means. I think we're doing that wholeheartedly, and a lot of that is in things like. Do we connect the downtown and the waterfront? What is the possibility there? So I think we're pursuing that, and we're being pretty frugal on how we're doing that. So, I too am in support of this, and unless there's any other comments, I would take a motion, and it looks like Christine might have a motion.
Sure. I move that the city partners with the Morro Bay Chamber of Commerce for visitor center services and direct staff to finalize a contract with the Chamber for said services and renewal of a property lease at 695 Harbor Street. Council will have with final review of both agreements at a future council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion by Christine, a second by Mr. Heading.
I would like to.
Any further discussion?
Just briefly, we didn't touch on it, but we may wish to at this point. I appreciated having the review of the property lease rolled into this item. I neglected to mention it, but I think that was wise because it's an obvious question that we needed to resolve, and I appreciate staff and the chamber taking that on and getting us to a point where everybody understands clarity moving forward on the use for that building. I don't know if anyone else might want to comment on that.
That was good clarification.
And the one other item, just to follow up on what Walter said, I think would be important in terms of the potential tenant improvements that might be left behind.
Okay. I'm sure we'll cover that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Anybody interested in a short recess, or would you like to pursue a short recess? All right, how about if we come back at 8:45? We'll be right back with a short recess. Thank you.